This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Today's episode of the Motor City Sports Rant is brought to you by The Athletic, premium coverage for passionate Detroit sports fans. Detroit Sports Podcast listeners can get 20% off the first year of an annual subscription by visiting theathletic.com/DSP. That's theathletic.com/DSP for 20% off the first year of an annual subscription.
Detroit is the greatest! Straight up light you on fire for a Coney dog right now.
Darren McCarty comes back to Neiman in front of him. McCarty draws. McCarty in. McCarty scores! A magnificent goal! Darren McCarty!
Stafford takes, throws, end zone, Calvin, touchdown, Detroit Lions!
Thanks for downloading another episode on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. You're listening to the Motor City Sports Rant. I'm John Macaroon, the Doc. Jason, unfortunately not here. I'm going to effort him, try and get him on the line for just a few minutes. I know the man is super busy and he's dealing with some things at home, but I definitely want to get a chance, hopefully, to talk to him, so I'll try and dial him up. But on this episode, got a couple interviews lined up that I think you guys will enjoy. Unfortunately, the talk of the town continues to be Michigan State. As each 24 hours goes by, new information comes out. People are definitely investigating what's going on regarding what occurred with Larry Nassar and Michigan State's reaction, and now as well, when reporters are starting to dig regarding how Michigan State has handled, allegations of sexual abuse, assault in the past across the athletic landscape. Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio are squarely in the crosshairs, and it's a big story. It's blowing up, and it's one that's not going away. Each day that passes, there's new layers that occur. More information has come out, and everybody's starting to ask the pertinent questions regarding, look, Tom Izzo was asked following Michigan State's victory versus Maryland. Obviously, Tom Izzo was excited on the sideline when the game ended because it was a tough road victory, but right away in the press conference, the reporter from Outside the Lines had come out and right away started asking, there's a lot of questions regarding your program, regarding how you've handled these situations. And so Tom Izzo kind of got caught looking like a deer in the headlights because of the fact that not only did the reporter ask the question once, she pressed him when he gave the standard answer. And the question that she was asking was in regards to how Tom Izzo handled Travis Walton and why he left the program in 2010. And Tom got caught a little bit kind of surprised and unprepared. And what he had said was, I'm not exactly sure why he graduated. But the reporter pressed him and continued to ask him, look, no, there were scenarios in which there were allegations. He then went on to play basketball in Europe, but why was he let go from the program when he was a graduate assistant coach? And Tom Izzo kind of had maybe let it slip or wasn't prepared, but he said that I'm not exactly sure why Travis Walton left in 2010. But Tom Izzo made a point, and he said, look, we've cooperated with every investigation, and we'll continue to cooperate. He's trying his best to deflect all these tough questions, but the questions need to be asked in regard to what were the procedures that were in place when allegations were made regarding these athletes. And so people are asking these tough questions, and now the head coaches, those in charge at Michigan State, are tasked with answering these tough questions. Now, Mark D'Antonio came out and he stated emphatically on Friday, he came out and he made note that, look, we've taken actions in the past in regards to player discipline. Many people are looking and going and asking the tough question like, well, why was it in 2016 when the player allegations came out regarding, some assault and some alleged sexual misconduct, those players were removed. But prior to that, did Michigan State football and Michigan State athletics handle things properly? Were there scenarios in which anything was covered up? Were things properly reported? Because this investigation is going to go well beyond the coaches, well beyond Michigan State, because reports came out over the weekend that the NCAA was made aware of Michigan State back in 2010. And so the questions are being asked in regards to, okay, who knew what and what was done with that information? Because those that are inquisitive, those that are pressing are asking and going, look, when women made allegations, was anybody pressured? Was anybody made to feel like their case wasn't relevant? were things suppressed to save the athletic program? So this investigation is wide-reaching in terms of the police at Michigan State, the police in Lansing, prosecutors, people in the know in regards to how these things are handled. And many people are kind of investigating, look, why is Title IX involved in any of this? When there's potential criminal activities going on, why are universities kind of the first stop for these young ladies when in essence, it doesn't look like it's been effective at all? It looks like there's like hoops to kind of jump over. It seems like these women are interrogated and they got to make their case before anybody does anything. And so many people are kind of going, you know what? Let's just remove the universities from this and let's just go to local authorities and find ways to enact policies to deal with these allegations. And it just seems like the prevailing notion is that these universities have protected themselves for several years by maybe even not reporting things that they should have, or by having a system in place that allowed these things to continue because of the fact that if these women go to these certain people, then they won't go to the authorities, or prosecutors won't press charges because down the line there'll be beneficial agreements where these individuals could gain favor from the university by not pursuing some of these things. So this investigation is short term, and many people are looking really deeply. It's not going to stop. And so Michigan State is going to be made an example of, but hopefully for the better. Meaning, we're going to find out exactly what the processes were regarding Michigan State's handling of these allegations, and hopefully these universities across the country can come up with universal standards as to how to apply and how to deal with allegations of sexual assault so that universities do not get caught up in this again. So something good has to come from this, and something has to be done in a positive way to shed light. Now, Michigan State probably didn't want all the scrutiny, but in essence, sometimes these things have to be uncovered. These things have to be looked at critically because many people have started to question, how has Michigan State allowed these things to happen for so many years? Is there a culture? Is there suppression going on? Is there something where the athletic programs are being held in higher standards so that nothing is reported? Both Tom Izzo and Mark D'Antonio are leaders at that university, and they have to come out and answer these questions. And I hope they're being honest that they both will continue to be encouraging and both will be supportive of investigations because they are definitely coming. Now, let me set this podcast up for you, this edition of the Motor City Sports Rant. I got two great interviews. When everybody's looking at these things regarding Michigan State, I had to go to those in the know. We got Marti Martin, a longtime radio veteran, a current freelancer, doing audio work for the Associated Press and CBS Sports. I also got a former Michigan State athlete. He dropped bombs on Twitter over the weekend regarding Michigan State and his time there. Garrick Sherman, a controversial figure, kind of in the past, if you recall his story, he went out, he played for Michigan State, he got wrapped up in that Final Four season, and he tells a story, and if you listen to it, because it was recorded earlier, he tells a story of drama, he tells a story of what really went on in his time at Michigan State, and what he thinks about the current news. So Garrick Sherman will be on this podcast later on. You'll want to definitely listen to it because he paints a picture of two different programs that he was part of, Michigan State and Notre Dame, and he tells two different stories, two vast experiences, and it doesn't look good for Michigan State, at least from Garrick Sherman's perspective. But like I said, I was efforting Jason Jarvie. Didn't come into the studio today, but I got him on the phone right now. Jason, my man, what's happening?
I'm just here laying on the floor with a sick kid.
I know, man. Look, I appreciate your honesty and things like that, but I appreciate you giving me at least a couple minutes here, recapping your time. What's up with the little man? Is he all right?
Yeah, it's, I've dealt with a little bit of spit up before, but, over the past weekend, we were celebrating my wife's birthday, and we came back to her parents' house, and everything was going fine. We were literally just about to have ice cream and cake, and the little man he vomited, and it was so much vomit, and it was real vomit. It wasn't just the formula stuff. This was real. So yeah, I've been dealing with this ever since the weekend. He's starting to perk up, but
oh, thank goodness. Yeah, because there's nothing worse than a sick kid. It's literally you feel helpless because they're sick, they're crabby, they're crying, they're fussing, nothing's going down. I'm like, look, thank goodness I work a lot because, and I give credit to my wife because she handles it all. I freak out. I'm more of the kind that's like, what's wrong? Let's get him to the doctor. And she's like, no, relax. Let's let this play out. Kids get sick. And I'm like the parent that's like, look, let's put them in a bubble. Damn it. I don't want these kids getting sick. Don't let no one come over. Don't let them touch. Clean up the house a little bit more. Get a little bit more sanitizer. Come on. So I give you credit for sticking with it, man. My goodness.
Yeah, and it definitely was. Like that first day, it was, what do we do? Do we need to get him Pedialyte? Is he going to be dehydrated? And that was just the biggest fear is that, he's going to immediately go from 0 to 100, and it's going to be awful, especially with all the talk of the flu this season. But, cooler heads prevailed. We waited it out. We let it kind of run its course. I think it was probably just like a stomach bug, but still not fun.
My man, Jason, you're coming in great. I love the phone line. Good stuff, sir. Look, man, when we started hearing the news regarding Dr. Larry Nassar, the issues at Michigan State, I didn't think it was going to get to where it is right now, bro. I mean, it's something where every single day new information is released and new information comes out regarding not only the Dr. Larry Nassar situation, but also people are exploring and investigating how Michigan State in the past has handled past discretions because of the fact that the football team had some noted issues and they released some players. And then they're kind of doing what they call an introspection regarding the past. And when things like that happen, when your programs get audited, it doesn't look good sometimes because of the fact that not every program does everything exactly by the book. And many people are wondering, look, what's the book supposed to be? Because of the fact, people will say, well, if these allegations regarding, Tom Izzo's program and D'Antonio's program, what's actually happened? Were things, basically swept under the rug? Were, prosecutors in line working with Michigan State? It's like one big, huge mess. And each day that passes, more and more questions are being asked. And it doesn't look like, at least from the basketball side, that Tom Izzo's been up to the challenge in terms of making people feel comfortable. D'Antonio on Friday did a great job. I mean, he came out and said, I've supported and done everything I can in these investigations, whereas Tom Izzo, in terms of a couple scenarios and a couple players, Adrian Payne and Travis Walton in particular, has kind of opened the door for some people to say, you know what? Were you implicit in not reporting some things, or did you allow these things to happen in terms of not taking the necessary steps to address these player concerns? What have you made regarding this mess in the last 5 days?
Obviously what I make from it is that I need to see everything, and I want to see what they actually investigate and what they find, because I don't think you can really jump to any conclusion and immediately crucify or absolve them of anything, because that's what I've heard on sports radio, that, there needs to be an example and this needs to never happen again. And I just don't think that's the way the world really works. So obviously, if it comes out that stuff with coaches were complicit, and it kills me that these are our teams. This is Mark D'Antonio, this is Tom Izzo. But if these guys are complicit in doing any of this, then they have to go. They need to. But we need to get all the facts.
Yeah, I think that's the first thing that I think a couple of reporters and those that are kind of investigating say. What they're saying is, look, relax. We can't just set a blowtorch to Michigan State just yet. But what has to happen is what Joel Ferguson was laughing about and kind of poo-pooing. But what has to happen is a thorough investigation, which is going to happen. I mean, ESPN is all over it. You're going to have several reporters and journalists from different and various organizations definitely look at this. And they're tasked with, I guess I'll ask you, what should they be investigating, and what is the best thing that could come of this? Because of the fact that this is so serious, this could be far-reaching all the way up to the NCAA in terms of what happens when allegations are made and how things should be addressed. And I do think that a thorough investigation needs to happen, and what likely is the best-case scenario is that any improprieties are punished, any improprieties are looked at, and there has to be some policies in place that are clear-cut. When an allegation is made, what should happen to an athlete? And I know people will say, well, take it on a case-by-case basis. But in terms of your program, people are going to look at who are you bringing in, what's happening, and when there's things that go on then you got to do some things to straighten it out and make sure something like this never happens at Michigan State, where people question what is going on when an allegation is made. It should be clear cut. We did X, we followed the rules, or we didn't.
And what I've seen is from the football team, none of these allegations seem really new to me. Like, I feel like we've heard these allegations before. They've basically, like, D'Antonio has been, he's cooperated with everything, at least from what I know, what I've seen in the media. I think the bigger, more concerning issue is definitely on the basketball side, because that's really what we've seen is that, Tom Izzo runs a clean ship, and he's the guy who does it the right way. And now all the stuff is coming out that, maybe there is some shady stuff going down in Michigan State basketball. So I think that's the more concerning area, because I think Mark D'Antonio has definitely been, or at least from what I've seen, he's been above board. And obviously if it comes out that, he's done a lot more stuff behind the scenes, it's going to shake my confidence in him, in the football team, and in the entire school that, they let this type of thing happen.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing with Michigan State, that everyone that I've talked to, I did an earlier interview with Marti Martin. It's going to air next after this segment. The part that everybody is curious about is the lack of transparency that Michigan State has kind of rolled with in the last 5 years. It just kind of looks like when people have asked for information, when they've gone through the Freedom of Information Act, there's been a lot of things that have been redacted, left out. And so people are looking and they're going, Michigan State kind of looks like they're not concerned with solving the problem. They're concerned with covering their ass. And that can't happen as an institution. That's how you lose trust. That's how you have the NCAA breathing down your neck, is when you try to cover your ass and do things that are not proper and things like that. And when you suppress information in this day and age, it's really hard. And Michigan State's going to have a hard time in the lessons that they're going to learn, because I do think that when the report comes down, you're going to see a lot of mistakes. You're going to see a lot of people that could have done things a lot differently. And it just looks that way. I mean, I don't see a scenario in which Michigan State comes out looking positive when a thorough investigation is done. No doubt about it.
No, and honestly, I do hate to say it as a fan, but I mean, even if they do, if it comes out similar to with Simon, the president, that even if it just comes out that stuff happened under their watch and they just didn't follow up on it, I think we could be looking at Michigan State football and basketball having two coaches being either fired or forced to resign or just retiring. And it's going to be some very, very interesting times up ahead for Michigan State sports. And I mean, it has to happen. You have to put away your fandom. You can't just be biased and say that, support your team. This is something that has to happen. Whatever the punishment is, we're just going to have to accept whatever it is.
It's a scenario in which this is being looked at. It needs to be looked at, and Michigan State has made some mistakes, but in the end, as long as it results in, progress and making these things right so it doesn't happen, these things definitely need to happen. Now, there's no easy way to transition out of this topic, but this is Super Bowl week. I want to get early impressions. What do you think of the Super Bowl? Eagles and the New England Patriots. What do you think, sir? What do you think about this?
Well, I would have thought that the Patriots would have this easily, because I didn't see the Eagles being able to do much with Nick Foles at the helm. But after what they did to the Vikings, I mean, we talked about it last week, that I think the Eagles have to get a little bit of credit. I think they have a really good defense, and I think if the Eagles do have a shot this week, it's going to come down to defense, and they're going to have to hold Brady early and really just keep their foot on the pedal the entire game. They're going to have to play an entire 60 minutes, because as we saw last season, no lead is really safe with Tom Brady. The Falcons get up big, and they stage an epic comeback for Brady to win another Super Bowl. And that's what the Eagles are going to have to do this game. They're going to have to keep him in check the entire game. I'm just not sure if they're going to be able to do it, because the Patriots, they've now had 2 weeks. Gronkowski, he's out of the concussion protocol. He's reportedly practicing. I think the Patriots, it's just destiny for them to win. I hate to say that, but that's what it feels like. It feels like they're going to win. Patricia and Josh McDaniels, both of those guys are going to be leaving. So we could see Belichick retire. I mean, I don't think he will, but you never know. It could be one last hurrah for them. It would be an epic way for them to go out.
Jason, thank you so much for chiming in. I appreciate it. I know that we don't like it when our kids get sick, but you're definitely doing a great job. You're a great dad. You chimed in. You gave us your prediction. You think it's Tom Brady and the Patriots. I appreciate your time. I look forward to seeing you next week. But at the same time, I'm now kind of evaluating. You sound a little bit better on the phone. So maybe if I get half price on my rate that I pay you, maybe I can just keep you at home and you can just call.
Maybe we'll just do that. That sounds like a plan.
All right, Jason. I'll check in with you next week. Thanks so much, partner.
All right, man. See you later.
Later, brother. That was Jason Jarvie. Follow him on Twitter at Jarvie the King. Good guy. Really just joking around. He's definitely committed to the project. And I wouldn't want to move forward with this project without a guy like Jason. A good dude. Let's definitely wish his kid a quick recovery. But after this quick timeout, we're going to have the interviews back to back. I'll roll them through. Interviews that I did shortly before starting this first part of the podcast with Marti Martin and former Michigan State basketball athlete Garrick Sherman. Stay with us. You're going to want to listen to him right after this. Let's talk about our host site, Podomatic. When we first started this project, one of the things that I needed to know was, how do you take your audio that you record and put it up to the internet? So all I did was go to Google and search uploading audio easily. And one of the first sites that popped up was Podomatic.com. Podomatic is our host site. And through our work with Podomatic, we've been able to put up podcasts with no trouble at all. Podomatic's user interface is so easy and friendly. I've showed every guy here on the network how to upload podcasts, and they'll tell you. If you ask Vito, if you ask Adam, if you ask Jason or Jerry, they'll tell you within 5 minutes you can put up your podcast to the internet. And so we spend our time having fun, planning. Not too much time is spent on uploading our audio. All we got to do is take the audio, go to Podomatic.com, and boom, our project, our audio is up to the interwebs, and it gets on iTunes, and it gets heard by the masses. And so that's why I'm a strong supporter of Podomatic. It's easy, it's user-friendly, and should you have any problems at all, you just contact them, and boom, they address your concerns right away. The crew over there at Podomatic has been awesome. So since we started this project, we've only had one user site, and that's Podomatic. So listen to the doc. If you want to start a podcast and you want to get your project up and to the internet very quickly, Doc suggests one site, Podomatic.com.
Yeah, we coming now. Come on. Yeah, that's right. We put it down. It's like a family in here, just a little disabled. Putting it down, we lay them out on the table. Yeah. Who's in the house? The brothers in the house. Gotta turn it on out, let you know what we about. Kinda like Cain and Abel, a bit unstable, don't be breaking the brain, break the whole thing.
On the phone with us, as advertised on the Motor City Sports Rant, we have Marti Martin. You know her from Detroit radio. She's also been a freelance reporter since 2001. Now she's working with CBS Sports and the Associated Press, having also appeared on Press Pass in Lansing. Marti Martin joins us. She accepted the invitation. Thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to talk to you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the invite.
Unfortunately, we have to talk in tough times regarding Michigan State University, but it's an opportunity to continue dialogue. It's an opportunity to speak with those who are in the know regarding Michigan State. How have you experienced these last 2 weeks? Because for me, as a Spartan alum, it's been almost surreal in that each and every day, new snippets of information is released regarding a program that we support. And unfortunately, the things that have been released lately are not on the positive side.
Yeah, it's been crazy listening to those women speak. As a woman, definitely got to me for sure. As I can't even imagine what it was like and what it has been like for them over the past, range of years. Anytime, in the last 20 years, I felt genuinely awful and sick inside for what they had to go through, and then to have to relive it. There's some healing involved from what I'm told. Unfortunately, I know a couple of rape survivors that would start a healing process for them, but it's been awful for them first and foremost. And I definitely have sympathy for them, and they are in my thoughts and prayers. And I'm not one of those people that just says that. I truly mean it. With the school, it's the information never seems to end at this point, but I've always been known as a person that asks a lot of questions. Got me in a lot of trouble as a kid, gets me in a lot of trouble now. I have so many questions about so many things, some of which I think will get answered, some of which I don't think we'll ever know the answer. I don't ever think we'll know with Kathy Clay just what she knew, when she knew it, what her motives were. I don't anticipate ever getting that answer from her, which is frustrating, and it pisses me off that she can just walk away. And I don't think she has, I don't know, but I don't think she has any remorse, any guilt. I don't know what Mark Hollis knew. I don't know what Luanna Simon knew. I don't know what anybody knows. And I don't know if we'll ever truly get that answer, but I sure hope we do, because it's a mess right now.
Exactly. That's the best way to describe it, as a mess. The one thing that we are all looking at is when information was obtained, when these reports regarding Dr. Nassar started to surface, the thing that is upsetting to most people is that the initial reaction that Michigan State likely had at right now on the surface is to try and basically cover it up instead of being forthright. And we all know that the cover-up is always worse than the original story.
And it's funny that you happen to say that, because I said that the other day, and the person I was talking with looked at me and said, in this case, no, the cover-up isn't worse. And I said, that's a great point, but I know exactly what you mean, because I use the same reference, because nothing is worse than sexual assault. But in this case, it definitely appears that they are hiding things. And one of the questions I have is, the story came out on September 12th, 2016. Why did it take so long for everyone to show the outrage that's happened? Was it again one of those instances where once you saw the women and heard their voices, then you felt the outrage? Where was everybody for the last year and a half? Why did that take so long? By everyone. The university, they supposedly did things right then, but at that point, you should then, if you weren't transparent about everything earlier, why are you not transparent at that point? Another one of my questions that I have that's frustrating that I wish we could get an answer for.
Yeah, and many people are really astoundingly shocked by the tone-deaf nature of some of the administrators who are tasked with leading a university. How surprised were you that as soon as this stuff started to kind of escalate and snowball, that the comments and release from Tom Izzo to Joel Ferguson to some of the trustees, it just kind of seems like one of the early themes is that, wow, this administration is really tone-deaf on a lot of things.
For sure. I had originally, when this all happened, thought Luanna Simon, they needed to investigate what she knew, but I thought at that point she needed to step down. It took a few days longer than I thought it should have, but she did. The comments from the Board of Trustees, again, I don't understand, and I had read since then that we're either the only state or one of the only states that elects Board of Trustees the way we do. I know a lot of people that I know don't take that part of the election seriously. And I can say that I have always taken that seriously and looked at who is running and why they're running and their background. And I am going to be one of those people moving forward that is a proponent and gets out there and encourages people to not just either not vote on that position or vote for whoever because they're already there. Because this is an example of the people that sit in on that Board of Trustees can make a difference. And hopefully that something happens with them, because they are definitely, I'm not going to group them all together, but there's definitely a contingent that are definitely tone deaf. And as far as Tom Izzo, obviously I've been covering him just shy of 20 years. He did come back out and rethought his comment, explained his comments. I definitely don't think he's tone deaf, and I do have a story, unfortunately, that I can't share, that he really is trying to reach out to victims on a one-on-one basis to see what he can do. Yes, at this point, I do believe it's too little too late, because time has already gone by. Do I have an issue with him not commenting on it now? The reality is unfortunately, he has a job to do as a basketball coach. I'm pretty sure before his game yesterday, he did not watch the Outside the Lines piece. So for him to comment on it would not have been fair. However, I think after he watches it, I fully expect to have him either I don't expect a release. I expect a face-to-face with media statement, questions, whatever, on what has been alleged in that piece, if that at all makes sense.
Marti Martin, CBS Sports and Associated Press freelance reporter. You can follow her on Twitter at simply MARTI. Going forward, what needs to happen in terms of these investigative reports for supporters to begin to regain the trust with Michigan State? Because at this point in time, a lot of trust has been lost.
For sure. They need to start, first of all, being transparent. I came up with just a list of questions when I said, hey, I'd come on and do this with you, that my first and foremost question, and it's an overbroad question, why for Title IX at all in this country are we letting universities self-regulate themselves? I have an issue with that in general. That's where I think something should start. Once all of this is done at Michigan State, and everyone should be asked, not just in the athletic department as the coaches, but everybody in the university, as Attorney General Bill Schuette said, needs to be asked. We need answers across the board. Who knew what, or at least can be documented when? That's first and foremost. If Michigan State will start to be transparent, then people will start, and TVing will start to gain a little more trust in them. But you have to be transparent in what you know. And unfortunately, another cliche is perception is what's reality for a lot of people. Perception right now is that they're hiding everything. They're not going to let anybody know what they don't want them to know because they are trying to hide. We don't know that if they aren't, but that's perception, and perception is reality. So I think if they can just get out of their own way and just say, okay, here we go. Here's what we have. Here's what we know. We are now an open book, and move forward. Get the people that should be in place to move them forward. Then you'll only start to get trust back. It's going to take a long time to do that.
Now, you referenced earlier you've covered Tom Izzo for the better part now of 20 years. What can you share with our listeners regarding the man, the head coach, and the man that's been there as a head coach longer than most at Michigan State? And right now, it seems like he's the center of the storm a little bit more than Mark D'Antonio because of the way he's responded to the first series of questions. Mark D'Antonio came out and flatly denied in terms of basically covering things up. He's also said, look, when you look at it, there's a track record in the last 2-3 years of severe disciplinary actions being taken place and enacted on the football team. But on the other side, the basketball team now is squarely in the crosshairs. Can you speak on Tom Izzo and how is this likely to play out with the investigation of the athletic department?
I can say that, and I would venture to say, if not most all of his players, say he genuinely cares about his players. And a lot of people will say to me, oh, if I can't believe he's yelling at the player. I said, well, the player knew before he got there. He was going to try to make the best player that he could out of that player. He's not a closed book. He's always open to the media, which is, again, why I think some people are reading more into this, because he is an open book. He doesn't refrain from making comments after games, at press conferences. If you see him out and about, he's very open when asked a question. So people are looking at this, he's now being guarded. And I'm trying to be objective because I like to let facts play out. If you look at it, that ESPN report came out on Friday afternoon. Again, don't know. He might have known it was coming, probably didn't know what was in it. He had a game Friday night to coach. He can't sit in his office and it took a long time to read, dissect that whole thing. He then had a game on Sunday. Outside the Lines was on Sunday morning. He's not watching Outside the Lines in his hotel room because, again, he's got a game to coach. He is a man that truly cares about people and cares about the university. I don't think there was any cover-up by him. Do I think, looking back, if he might have done something different? He might have, but I think he let things play out as far as investigations, as far as criminal charges, and dealt with it accordingly. Do I think, looking back, once Travis Walton was actually charged, if he would have suspended him, I bet if you asked him, he would say, yeah, he probably should have suspended him at that point until it played out. He didn't. but I don't think he maliciously has tried to hide a culture of sexual assault or crimes within the basketball program. I think he's at the forefront because he's had 2 games. Mark D'Antonio's not coaching right now. He came out with a statement because he had time and isn't in season at this point. He is recruiting, yes, but he's not trying to coach games, which gives him, I would believe, a little more time to actually look at things.
Marti Martin, you can follow her on Twitter at simply Marti. Now I'll get you out of here on this. What does your current work entail, and what are some things you are currently pursuing in your work as a freelance reporter with CBS Sports and the Associated Press?
Well, the good news for me is I'm an audio freelance reporter, which means I try to get the best information I can post-game for the Associated Press, which is my main focus right now. And obviously, it's been super busy with the game last week and everything that's happened, and try to get the audio out there, which goes across the entire nation to all the Associated Press subscriber stations, that is encompassing of what's going on. As we both know, if you take a soundbite out of context, it can change everything. As a former producer in radio, I used to do that to be funny, but in a serious matter like this, if something's taken out of context, it can put a whole different spin on a person or on a case. So right now, I'm truly just trying, and I'll do it again on Wednesday when Penn State comes to Michigan State, to get the best information, the best audio, and the best sound I can get out there for everybody across the nation that subscribes to the Associated Press.
Now, if you could give me one piece of advice in terms of securing audio, because as you know, as a podcaster, that's my form of expression in terms of sports. You can follow us on Twitter at Detroit Podcast. We do daily podcasts here. You're seeking audio from coaches, athletes, those in the know following contests. What one piece of advice could you give me in terms of securing quality audio that can be released to the masses?
Make sure that you ask good questions when you have the ability, because then going back to what you said in a different way about trust, if the person that you're talking to knows that they can trust you and you're not trying to back them in a corner, I'm not saying don't ask hard questions because I have, but make sure you're asking the right hard question. And then when you get that information, you disseminate it out as a complete thought and not as, hey, just said X, but you really said X, Y, Z. To do that and talk to people. I have a lot of contacts throughout all of the sports as I used to cover all the teams in Detroit. Keep those contacts because you never know when you might need them or sometime down the road they might need you. So always keep lines of communication open, meet a lot of people, and that's how you can really get information.
Marti, I really enjoyed the conversation. I hope we have an opportunity down the road as the story evolves and as other things take place to have a conversation again in the future. I really enjoyed it. The podcast platform allows us to kind of go a little bit more in depth than standard interviews, and I hope for the opportunity one day to be in your presence and pick your brain. And I thank you so much for taking the time to reach out to us and message us and comment. Feel free, message anytime. I'd love to chat down the road. I'm looking forward to getting to know you and your work. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anytime. I think a woman's perspective in this is always good, and I try to be objective and sympathetic at the same time. So thanks for having me on.
Follow her on Twitter at simply Marti. A good follow, a very reasonable reporter, and she's doing great things out there. A long career. Thank you so much again. We look forward to chatting down the road.
Thank you.
On the phone with us right now on the Motor City Sports Rant is Garrick Sherman. He's a 7th-generation farmer at this point in time. You know him from his time at Michigan State. He was a former basketball player prior to transferring. How are you, Garrick?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
Very well. Interesting time for us Michigan State supporters. It's very interesting in that a lot of the news regarding Michigan State has been negative regarding allegations of sexual abuse, what's happened when news has reached the proper administrators and things like that. What was your reaction when you started hearing the news that Michigan State was in the crosshairs for potentially not exposing or not, reporting proper things to the proper authorities?
I think it's kind of shocking for everybody. No one really expects that kind of thing to be, unknown. I mean, obviously I was there when it happened, but it's not like I knew any details about it, and it wasn't shared with me or anything. So it's just it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, your time there was short prior to your transfer. Can you tell our audience what led up to your transfer from Michigan State's basketball team?
Well, my freshman year, I went to the Final Four, and there was a lot of drama off and on. That's just the way college sports tend to go sometimes. And wanted to give another year. I was like, okay, maybe this is an anomaly because, Coach Izzo was acting like it was an anomaly. So many distractions. That was always this big thing, no distractions. And then my sophomore year started, and literally the night that we had our first team meeting back, this was when the, alleged incident happened with our two freshmen. And I was just like, wow. So is this going on everywhere? Am I like losing my mind? Am I the crazy one? Because I was like so taken aback by it, and just that was kind of an encouraging place for me where I wanted to leave. I was like, okay, I don't think I want to be associated with this, but.
Yeah, I can understand because it sounds like from your time there it wasn't like exactly smooth sailing. In terms of how you reacted, was it something where you said, okay, you know what, this is something that can be modified, or did you go to coach and say, this is my experience? What was his level of support for you when you maybe addressed it with him, or how did you address it?
I really didn't. I just kind of stayed quiet and just kind of let him handle it. The incident happened. He came in. We had a team meeting. He was saying no more distractions. Same thing he's been preaching all summer. He said, at this point, I'm not even worried about their basketball career. Like they might be worried about their life. I don't know what what's going to come out of this because we didn't know what the prosecution was going to do with it. And then it all just kind of went away and never was spoken about.
Which player specifically at the time where you were there had these allegations?
Well, I mean, everybody knows the news story, so I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but it was Keith and Adrian. They were the ones that were being, investigated for it.
When you left, you had played at Notre Dame. Was it vastly different in terms of your experience there as opposed to Michigan State?
Yes, so it really was. I thought, coming from Michigan State, I'm like, okay, maybe every place is just like this. Maybe I'll just transfer and try and survive another place. But to be honest, it was not the same at all. We didn't have probably half the issues that we did at Michigan State. I'm not sure if that's just because there's more people on campus, there's more of a social life, so you're more of a public figure there, and more opportunities to be caught up and caught in trouble. But my experience at Notre Dame was not like my experience at Michigan State. I'll leave it at that.
Recalling your time playing basketball at Michigan State, there were some things that you had kind of made news for in regards to potentially maybe taking tests, urinating in a condom so that Darrell Summers could pass a drug test, things of that nature. You also discussed kind of the nature of seeing that several of the athletes were using marijuana. It just seemed like from the time that you were there, it just seemed like some of the things that go on in basketball that are of the negative side kind of came to the forefront in your experience.
Yeah, definitely. It was, it seemed like every other day we were having a team meeting about something, and I would rather, spend my time elsewhere. I don't need to have talks about my classes and spend 3 hours arguing with people trying to tell them to stop smoking. That was the basketball culture that I was stuck in for those 2 years. I can't speak after that, before that, anything else. I'm just telling you what I experienced, and it was a mess. I didn't want to be a part of it. It was draining on me to have to handle all these other situations, and quite frankly, I didn't really care. Like, it's not really my problem. That's them going off doing whatever decision they're doing, and it shouldn't be something that I have to deal with. But multiple team meetings, it was always drama. So it was quite draining.
Would you say one of the positive experiences was that Final Four experience? How did you experience going on a run in the NCAA tournament?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that was how I viewed it as the payoff for dealing with all the other things that we were dealing with. It was nice to, make that little run. And I was really good friends with Corey, so I was really happy for him after Caitlin unfortunately went down. And it was a cool 3 weeks. It was definitely an experience that I'll always remember.
You can follow Garrick on Twitter at gsherm11. What was your experience like playing in Europe after college?
Oh, it was good. It's much different. The style of basketball is a lot different, but I had a good experience, especially in Hungary. That was some of the most fun I've had playing basketball. I had a Serbian coach, and he was just completely upfront, and just kept it interesting. He pushed you, and it was a lot of fun.
Following your basketball career, where has life taken you since?
I've just kind of stayed away from basketball. I kind of made my run with it. I'm happy to be away from it. Just working on the family farm, day to day, just, I don't know, staying busy. There's a lot of things going on, so.
Yeah, it says on your Twitter bio, 7th generation family farmer. Do you feel like, you know what, at this point in time, you're continuing the lineage, you're doing something that you enjoy, at the same time, it's much different than a life participating in sports?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a 180 from sports time, but, I love it. I couldn't see myself having a career doing anything else. That was half the reason I went to Michigan State was because they had an agribusiness program. And Notre Dame did not. So I really was interested there coming out of high school. And I loved all my classes at Michigan State and had great ag teachers. It was very interesting.
As I'm sure you're aware, high school sports and high school athletics is a big thing around the country, and especially here in Michigan. If you could speak directly to a young high school athlete that's on the verge now of attending college, maybe attending a Big Ten university or attending a big-time program, and they're about to embark on an athletic endeavor, trying to balance being a student athlete, what words of wisdom can you impart on them in terms of maybe making their experience a little bit better for them?
I think that's a good question. I think you have to be aware of the people you're going in with, your recruiting class, who you're going to be surrounded with, because that's who you're going to be spending most of your time with. I also think you need to look at the style of play, the way you play, and then find a comparison with someone who's been there, played that position at that program, and had success. That's the biggest indicator is what the coaches have done previous with those kind of players, because everyone's creature of habit. So I think they tend to gravitate and put you in the role of someone that's more like you. So you just need to find a good fit, and it's more about the fit than it is the school. It's there's a lot of moving parts.
You're known for going on Twitter and saying some things, having some interesting debates. What's your view of social media and how it can be used both for the positive and the negative in this day and age?
Oh yeah, I've been on both sides of it. My whole Twitter rant or whatever, it kind of was not something I'm super proud of, but said what I said, not too worried about it either. But then also, it's a good way to reach out and be able to share your opinions. So it all depends on how you use it. Like a lot of things in life, you just kind of have to decide how you want to use it. You can use it for good or bad.
Garrick Sherman, kind enough to give us a few minutes here on the Detroit Sports Podcast, former Michigan State athlete, current farmer out there in Ohio. If there's listeners out there that don't know you and don't know your story, what would you like to impart to them? What would you like them to know about you and your journey so far after college life?
I don't know. I kind of try to stay off the radar. So there's not necessarily anything that's that interesting that I want them to know. But I've definitely had my good run with basketball, but I'm enjoying my time away from it too.
Okay, and then how do you see this playing out with Michigan State in terms of the investigation? Are you one of those that says, look, let's wait and see until all this plays out regarding the basketball and football programs? Or are you saying, you know what, there's a lot of smoke regarding what you're hearing? What's been your take on the athletic department and their role in terms of dealing with allegations at the university?
Yeah, I think it's unfair to lump D'Antonio and Izzo into the Nassar situation. They're completely different. It's not even comparable. But the police did investigate the athlete in pain thing, and there was no charges pressed. So if anybody has a beef with that, they need to look at the police department. I'm not sure if it's really on the coaches, but if they're going to reinvestigate it or whatever, then, I don't know, whatever comes out of it comes out of it.
Thank you so much for your time. I greatly appreciate it. Best of luck in future endeavors. And like I said, we hope to talk again regarding some basketball matters, maybe around the time of the tournament.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Want to thank Marti Martin again. Want to thank Garrick Sherman. Quality interviews definitely added to the conversation. Tough times all around for the Michigan State community, but like I told Jason, it needed to be done. Everything that has happened has been for a reason. People are uncovering these things for the better good of the community and for the better good of the relationships in terms of how athletes are treated, how young women are treated in a college community. And when you have scenarios in which a woman doesn't feel safe to go to the authorities to take care of an alleged allegation, you have a problem. And I do think that what needs to happen from these investigations, similar to what Marti Martin said, you need transparency, you need great policies, you need strict policies in place for when these allegations are occurring in terms of not only athletically, but across community campuses. And I always advocate for further education, further knowledge, further dialogue regarding relationships between men and women, what goes on in campus life, how to not put yourself in tough situations, and what are the proper procedures for reporting alleged abuses on campus. And it looks like that in the better part of the last 15 years, Michigan State hasn't done the best job, and probably across the landscape at universities, a lot of universities haven't done a good job in terms of making sure this doesn't happen. And if Michigan State has to be made an example, it's my alma mater, I support them, but if this is what needs to happen, then the book should be thrown at Michigan State so that it doesn't happen again, and so that the program that I followed since a kid and now in my early adulthood, I hope that they can fix this issue, and whatever shame needs to be brought them, it needs to come down on Michigan State so that healing can take place, and so that further going on in 2018 and beyond, this does not occur. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this podcast. Thanks again to our guests. You can follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Follow Jason at Jarvie the King. Thanks again to our great guests. See everybody next time.
Okay, nice idiot. You. Bye-bye.
Good day, sir. I said good day.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.
Loser.